him.
I want to watch the news.
Are you making headway at least?
This is the news.
Smack-em-a-gob, everybody. It's time for the only news that matters. And according to his brother, Alex Van Halen, there's a nickname that Eddie Van Halen hated. And that was actually what those outside their inner circle often called him. Eddie. Talk is Jericho host Chris Jericho referred to Van Halen as Ed, as that's how he was often addressed by his bandmates. Though to the world, he was often known as Eddie. Alex said he hated it. He's lucky they didn't call him something else. You know, he didn't like it, but it was something that just sort of became his name, so to speak. He preferred Edward. Just prior to the discussion of Eddie Van Halen's hating Eddie, Alex admitted that there was even some trepidation early on about using their family name as the moniker for the band. Today it's a well-established brand that conjures up a good time party vibe, thanks to the music, but it wasn't necessarily a slam dunk to be chosen. He said, you can give credit to that to David Lee Roth because, believe it or not, he was the one who suggested it. A few years after he started getting some kind of recognition in the area, Gene Simmons said, Van Halen sounds like a shirt company. And he wanted Virus or something, but with all due respect, he's been there. You take his opinion with a little more weight than someone who's not done it before. But it just didn't sound right. We stuck to Van Halen. Actually, Gene, one of the names Gene wanted them to change their name to was Daddy Longlegs. Man, that would have sucked. Daddy Longlegs? Get the fuck out of here. Well, anyway, speaking to how it initially felt using the Van Halen name, Alex said, it sounded awkward in terms of being egomaniacal, and that wasn't who Ed and I were. We were kind of warmed up to it, later on, and the rest is history. Offering a little background on the name, Alex said, the actual name means that you come from a town called Halen. If you go through, all the searches, the Van is a preface. It's the equivalent of Mac in Scottish names. It's the son of from so-and-so, so we are from Halen. I tried to get the coat of arms so we could add one more dimension to the way that we're perceived, but Holland wouldn't do it. You have to live here for a while. You can't mail it in. So that'll have to wait. Alright, there you go. Eddie hated being called Eddie. But it sounds kind of like, yeah, whatever, but yeah, I don't like my name. I hate my name, actually. Either way you say it, Raphael, Ralph, whatever, man. The other day I was walking down the street and somebody was calling my name, but it turns out nobody was calling my name. It was just a dog that was barking. Seriously. And there was another time I thought somebody was calling my name, and when I looked, it was just somebody throwing up. My name sucks. It may be the worst name, I think. Well, after Adolf. Adolf is obviously worse than my name, but I'd say mine's probably second. But anyway, yeah, it was a cool interview he had with Chris Jericho talking about the US Festival. It's quite a good interview. Chris asked him, he said, what's your favorite Van Halen song and what's your favorite Eddie Van Halen solo? And Alex said, well, solo, it's Eruption, his masterpiece. But Alex also said Eddie wasn't really happy with it. He wished he could have fixed a couple things. No, Eddie. I'm sorry, I mean Edward. Come on. You can't, you don't have to change anything in Eruption. Eruption already made its statement. You know? Perfect as is. You know? And then once again, Alex brought up when Chris Jericho said, yeah, you know, you ended your book right where, you know, Dave left the band. And, you know, and Chris said, when I write books, I do that too. You know, I stop and then I write, you know, continuation on the next book. Alex didn't actually say he was going to continue the next book, but what he did say, again, which I love, is that Van Halen was with Dave. He said, look, I'm not saying nothing bad about what came after. You know, he's being, you know, like, he's being a gentleman about it. He's not bashing the Hagar stuff. He just doesn't want to acknowledge it. You know, and I heard somebody in the podcast group put up a thing where some guy called up Eddie Trunk. And Eddie Trunk went on a fucking tirade about, oh, how can Alex not talk about the Sammy Hagar years? He's bashing his brother because his brother played those songs. And I'm like, you know what, man? Eddie, before he passed away, has been saying, he said in interviews that, you know, he's very suspect now of Sammy Hagar's lyrics. He actually also said in the same interview, not the music, I'm happy with the music, but I'm a little, you know, I should have paid closer attention to Sammy Hagar's lyrics. And he's right, they're atrocious. Those lyrics are atrocious, but yeah, you know Alex is not going to write no book about Vangina. That's a boring ass book, you know? There's nothing to see here, folks. This is some dated 80s cheese that really, you know, and he also said in the interview, the people remember the Dave years. He said that, man. That's what the people remember. And going back to what his favorite Van Halen song, he couldn't think of one, but he blurted out, "You really got me." You know, and then he started laughing. And then he said he saw the Kinks once, and Ray Davies said, this next song's written by Van Halen, and they played "You Really Got Me." That's a funny story. But going back to, like, Eddie Trunk for a second, I mean, that guy, I don't listen to him. I really don't. But every time I hear he plays, like, something about Vangina and then Van Halen, you know, he plays off like, all right, yeah, I like the Van Halen stuff more, but, you know, he kind of, like, equates Dave to a buffoon. He thinks, like, the Vangina stuff was great. Even though he liked the Dave stuff more, he still thinks the Vangina stuff is great, which is awesome if he thinks that. But when you get off the music part of it, he loves to bash original Van Halen, and he never has nothing bad to say about Sammy Hagar. And you know, Eddie Trunk is the guy that's always like, I tell it as it is, and this and that. He's never called out Sammy Hagar, not even once, with the amount of bullshit that he says, oh, when Paul Stanley lies, there's Eddie Trunk to bash Paul Stanley, you know, and he bashes David Lee Roth, he bashes Ozzy Osbourne, he bashes anybody that won't talk to him. But since Sammy Hagar talks to him, he never questions him about all the bullshit Sammy keeps saying in the press and on his show, because I've heard him on his show say some bullshit where Eddie Trunk doesn't say jack squat. You know, screw Eddie Trunk. I mean, I will say, I met Eddie Trunk twice, and both times he was nice as a person, but, you know, as a hi-bye thing. But when he gets on his radio show, I can't listen to that guy, man. He's such a little whiner. You know, he makes me sound good, because I whine too. But I whine with the truth. he whines with lathering the butt of whoever talks to him. And did you know Mike Portnoy is on his phone and he can text them, and he texts all these rock stars. You know, there are 2 rock stars. Actually 3 rock stars I have on my phone, and I text once in a while. But you know what? I'm not going to tell you who it is. Because it's not important. I don't need to tell you. You know, and I also don't want to put them out there. Because if I say, oh, this is the person, that's the person, this is the person. Yeah, they're going to look really bad knowing that Dr. Fuck is on their phone. They're going to be like, what the fuck's wrong with this guy? You know? So that's why I won't say who they are. To protect the innocent. Anyway, thank you so much for watching The Only News That Matters. What do you feel of Eddie not like to be called Eddie? It's weird to hang out with somebody called Edward and not call him Eddie. I mean, that's how I look at it. I have 2 friends called Eddie, and I always call them Eddies. Like Eddie Canistracci. Check out his YouTube channel. It rules. Eddie Canistracci. Right on. So thank you again, everybody. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Ring that little notification bell. And hey, like the video. It's good for the YouTube algorithms. So stay frosty. Listen to Van Halen with David Lee Roth. And smack 'em a gob. Sammy Hagar sucks.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain. For we've received orders for to sail back to Boston. And so never more shall we see you again.